Robert Whittaker's karate blitz is one of the most exceptional aspects of his game. As with Stephen Thompson and Lyoto Machida before him, Robert Whittaker has been an enigma for anyone dubbed not elite. Reinier de Ridder announced himself as elite by securing a split decision win over Whittaker at UFC Abu Dhabi. While his win over the Reaper wasn't expected, it wasn't pretty and wasn't wanted by the Australian faithful. That didn't stop the UFC's newest middleweight contender from doing what he does best. Like with Bo Nickel, Reinier de Ridder battered the body with his knees. While effective against Nickel, they were just as effective against a top-tier fighter and former champion. Here's how he did it. The central dynamic in the Reinier de Ridder Robert Whittaker matchup is the fighter's lead foot positioning. Robert Whittaker is an orthodox fighter. The Dutch Knight, a southpaw. Now, if you remember in our video, Is Tenshin Nasukawa an elite boxer? We discussed the inside and the outside foot position. I want to take a second to go back there and address two positions so we can better understand. Tenshin Nasukawa here starts with the inside angle. Notice his lead foot stepping to the inside in between his opponent's legs. This is the inside angle. The second frame here shows Tenshin Nasukawa, the very next exchange, stepping to the outside angle, which is a more traditional approach to a mirrored stance or southpaw versus orthodox matchup. Reinier de Ridder sets out to punish the inside angle immediately. Robert Whittaker pushes Reinier de Ridder to the cage, steps to the inside angle on his jab, and Reinier de Ridder slips to the inside of the jab and locks his hands and begins to lift the leg of Robert Whittaker. Putting his lead leg down between both of Reinier de Ridder's legs presents the Dutchman with a perfect opportunity to pick up the lead leg. It's already between his legs, and if he can just avoid the cross, as he did previously, he can get de Ridder the takedown in open space, a spot where he does not traditionally excel. But the real benefit here is establishing the threat of the takedown from the inside angle. If Robert Whittaker knows that he is stepping to the inside and it will hurt him, make it hard to get away, and wear on his cardio, he will be less inclined to do so. And he will be not as committed when he does go. Whittaker didn't abandon the inside angle this fight, but he was a lot more hesitant and a lot more sparing to use it. Reinier de Ridder will also stick to Robert Whittaker like glue, holding onto his arms, leaning on him against the cage, and everything in between. Reinier de Ridder does everything he can to grind out Whittaker and slow down the much faster karateka, allowing de Ridder to get to work in the clinch and ultimately steal the fight away. Even when Robert Whittaker did escape as de Ridder pushed him against the fence, Reinier de Ridder grabbed the arm and made Robert Whittaker fight to completely free himself. Much can be said about the grappling of Reinier de Ridder, one of the best in the UFC. It's arguably his attack on his feet, however, that's won him his last two fights against the former champion and the D1 wrestling phenom. Despite having terrible mechanics, the 34-year-old leads his boxing with the proper weapon, the jab. But Reinier de Ridder doesn't get away with his jab. It's lazy. Robert Whittaker, astute as any fighter as ever, was prepared. To handle this, he slips the jab to counter. Reinier de Ridder's footwork is already not the best. He often gets out of position and into bad spots. Robert Whittaker wants to exploit this, but Reinier de Ridder has an answer. Reinier de Ridder is now prepared for Robert Whittaker's attack. As he steps in, de Ridder slams an intercepting knee into the body, again and again and again and again. De Ridder then also dealt with the slip of Robert Whittaker. Whittaker started trying to time the jab of Reinier de Ridder and come over the top of the outstretched hand to punish the Dutchman's jab. To do so, he slips on the inside. The problem, Reinier de Ridder's already started throwing knees. As he slips to the inside, he's going to be in the way. Pressed to the fence, Whittaker is looking to go over the top. As de Ridder steps in, Whittaker looks to roll under the punch and throw his left over the top. The only issue is that Reinier de Ridder's set up the knee, and Whittaker sees the shift in weight. Instead of throwing the punch, he turns in and tries to block the kick and minimize the damage of the oncoming strike, abandoning what he originally intended to throw. Finally, to bring home an earlier point, Robert Whittaker isn't able to escape. He can't go backwards. The fence is behind him, in the way of his retreat. Reinier de Ridder is able to stick to him again, making life even more miserable. It was Robert Whittaker dipping to the inside that gave Reinier de Ridder his best moment of the fight. A couple of big knees that had Whittaker on wobbly legs. Of course, these knees got Reinier de Ridder dropped literally seconds later. Robert Whittaker inadvertently discovered how to counter the knees, slipping to the outside, throwing a huge overhand right just as de Ridder steps in with his hands down on one leg. Unfortunately for Whittaker, the effects of the knees were already taking their toll, and he'd not be able to build off of this. Reinier de Ridder will reap the benefits of his work as the fight wore on. Finally, as Reinier de Ridder threw out the jab, Robert Whittaker looked to slip to the outside and land another one of those big old rights. But de Ridder is not throwing the knee. He just feinted it, just pretended to surprise him with it. He steps to the outside of the lead leg of Whittaker, corralled the legs as he reaps the outside foot and gets the takedown in center space. Controlling Robert Whittaker will be the name of the game in the final 2 rounds. De Ridder stuck to Whittaker, kneed him in the clinch, and put the Aussie against the cage on his way to the split decision win. Reinier de Ridder isn't the safest fighter, he's not the most polished or the most technical in the stand-up department. While his grappling is among the UFC's best, that ugly striking has actually been his best friend in his past 2 fights, breaking down the former champion Robert Whittaker and the former wrestling standout Bo Nickel. Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev are 2 interesting fights going forward, but they're fighting for the title. While de Ridder is a fight or 2 away from that, the future for the Flying Dutchman is bright as ever.